Firstly, just your reflection on what is happening on the Middle East. It's so troubling. Is there anything that we can take comfort in? Or
it's very hard at the moment, actually, to take much comfort from the situation. I mean, the thing that I find most troubling of all is that there is absolutely no sign of any political activity of a kind that might start to lay a path for some kind of settlement. I mean, because in the end, you can go on fighting, but you actually then do have to talk.
It's just the military response rather than any kind of...
Exactly. That is worrying. And the Americans are, as things stand at the moment, I've heard if there's anything happened today, but they're not managing to de-escalate in any way. That's to say, get up the delivery of humanitarian help. And I can't myself see why it's impossible, actually, for there to be a reasonable flow into from Egypt into the southern end of the Gaza Strip, and why that should be an impediment in terms of Israel's military objectives in Gaza.
Lots of people are calling for a ceasefire. Is that something that you support?
No. I mean, for the very simple reason that I think that it will do. I mean, that does actually make it very difficult for the Israelis. They do have a real... Hamas, we should be under no illusions. Hamas is calling for the destruction of Israel. And that's what from the river to the sea means. And people should not lend their support to this idea. I think some of them understand it perfectly well. Others should actually wake up. So this is a real existential threat. No doubt about that. On the other hand, there's an information war and there's a public relations war also to be won. And that is the thing that Israel has to be very careful about. So she does need to balance, I think, her military objectives with her interests in actually not so alienating large swathes of public opinion in the world, such that she makes her task more difficult, and those of her friends and allies.
Talking of her friends and allies, how concerned are you about the security impact here in the United Kingdom?
There's not an immediate impact in the sense that our territory is at risk, though it's very clear that this is another complicating factor in a darkening world, where things are becoming more unstable and where our interests and our economy, also involved. But what I think will be troubling to the intelligence services and to the security service is, in fact, the driver of terrorism, which is extremism, which is the sort of climate that's created by the marches we're seeing, the general stirring of emotion and opinion and anger.
You mentioned the marches there. Do you think that does create?
I think it fosters a tense atmosphere. It fosters hostility. It fosters a grievance narrative.
Even the people who were there, who were doing it to try and, I guess, march for peace.
Well, I think some of them are lending themselves to something that I think they don't realise their full significance. I mean, the Home Secretary is often criticised for saying extreme things, but I think she's right. I mean, some of these people are motivated. Well, they are motivated by hate, and some people are unwittingly lending their support to that. Others know perfectly well what they're doing, and I do think it's damaging. So we're in a very difficult situation for a country with free speech, somehow preserving the rights of the majority, where they're potentially being prejudiced by a minority. And I don't want to see more restrictions on free speech. But you can see how difficult it is for the government to preserve, on the one hand, the rights of the majority, at the same time, not allow a situation to arise in which those demonstrations are used for the purposes of increasing tension and increasing the threat to our society.
Do you think that the police should take a tougher line with the protests then?
I have a lot of respect for the current head of the Met, and he was, when he did the security job, he did a very good job. And his comment has been that there needs to be a clearer definition of extremism. And I think he's right in that. At the time, in 2015, there was a decision which doesn't ever seem to have been implemented, actually to have a proper definition of extremism, and indeed have a legal underpinning. And I think now what the government are now saying about having a definition of extremism is actually a consequence of that situation. Myself, I want to see extremism properly dealt with. I mean, there's a very good report by William Shawcross, which the government has promised to implement in full, which deals very extensively with the origins, how people get into, drawn into being terrorists and supporting terrorism. And that is the part of the policy that he most focused on, and it's the part of the policy that needs most attention. And we need to look specifically at extremism.
And just finally, there is a protest planned for Saturday, Remembrance Day. It's not around the cenotaph, it's a couple of hours after the minute's silence, but do you think that protest should go ahead?
Very difficult. This is a very difficult one. I mean, I think, can't chop and change. I think now I would opt for good policing, careful control, and what should be the cooperative attitude of those who are organising it.
OK, thank you very much. Really interesting to get your take today. Thank you.